The second part of the 4-H framework is heart. This section is all about making your audience feel something. It's about having your audience connect with you and feel emotionally invested in the topic that you're presenting. When someone's scrolling through social media, what type of posts capture their attention? Oftentimes, I find it's not only things that interest them, but make them feel something. Now, they might feel happy if they see cute pictures of puppies or cats. They might feel angry if they see a news story that upsets them. Either way, it's emotion that's grabbing their attention. And this only is not applicable to social media. This is applicable when you're on stage presenting. If you make your audience feel something, they're more likely to be engaged and invested in what you're talking about. You don't want your presentation to feel robotic, like you don't care at all. It makes your audience feel that they shouldn't be invested, they shouldn't be interested. But when you find ways to connect with your audience, you can leverage that emotion to have better engagement and have them remember. I often have heard the phrase, it's not about what you said to them, it's about how you made them feel. Remember that when you're deciding the heart of the 4-H framework. Let's take a look at 2 examples now and see how these presenters in professional TED Talks used heart to engage with their audience.
So why do people reply to spam emails? You know, I mean, it's odd, isn't it, given the fact that they are preposterous. And they are preposterous. I got your contact from a South African health officer in Ghana. I find that unlikely. I need to move with 1,000 carats of polished diamond. Equally unlikely. Note, this transaction is 100% risk-free and does not attract any danger. Commander Karoma. It's funny, isn't it? I mean, this is ridiculous, right? And it's funny that anyone would reply to it, but if you think about it, this is actually rather clever, because by making the scams ridiculous, ideally for the scammer, the only people who are going to reply are the most gullible people. And me. I said, I'm in.
What did you think of that first video? It's pretty clear to see how he used heart to engage with his audience. Humor. This guy is a comedian, and he uses humor to engage with his audience. Now, he's presenting on a very serious topic, email scamming. It affects so many people each year. But he decides to present it in a way that's funny and engaging, instead of getting up there with pie charts and bar graphs and boring the audience to death. Not everyone can ace that humor aspect, but it's a very effective strategy in order to engage an audience right out of the gate. Let's take a look at our second example and see how this gentleman's talk engages his audience.
In 1972, there were 300,000 people in jails and prisons. Today, there are 2.3 million. The United States now has the highest rate of incarceration in the world. We have 7 million people on probation and parole, and mass incarceration, in my judgment, has fundamentally changed our world. 1 out of 3 black men between the ages of 18 and 30 is in jail, in prison, on probation, or parole. In urban communities across this country, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, 50 to 60% of all young men of color are in jail or prison, or on probation and parole. The United States is the only country in the world where we sentence 13-year-old children to die in prison. We have life imprisonment without parole for kids in this country. For every 9 people who have been executed, we've actually identified 1 innocent person who's been exonerated and released from death row. A kind of astonishing error rate. 1 out of 9 people, innocent. I mean, it's fascinating. In aviation, we would never let people fly on airplanes if for every 9 planes that took off, 1 would crash.
What did you think of the second video? How did that presenter use heart in order to engage his audience? He did this in several ways. The first is that he used descriptors, additions to his words. He didn't just tell you the facts. He went a little bit beyond. Let me give you an example. He said, young black men in urban areas. He could have stopped there, but he didn't. He said young black men in urban areas like New York, Boston, Chicago. you begin to picture the skylines when I say those places. These types of additions help our audience get a mental picture and better understand and empathize with what we're saying. Additionally, he doesn't speak in a flat, monotone way the entire presentation. Instead, he uses emphasis on specific words throughout his talk in order to help highlight key points and keep you engaged. If you were using this strategy in one of your presentations, let's say a business pitch when you're opening up a new cafe, you could say, our restaurant is supporting the Nordic community in Boston. While you did get your point across, it's a little weak. So I'd encourage you to try putting heart into it. And that would sound like this. Our restaurant is the only one of its kind in the city of Boston to support Boston's growing Nordic community. Hear the difference? Adding heart into your presentations is a great way to engage an audience and, again, get them to feel and remember. Let's have you, on your own, find ways that you're going to connect to your audience. Really decide a couple options that you might use in order to get that emotion, that empathy. Are you going to use humor? Are you going to vary your voice as you present? What strategies will you employ in order to bridge that connection?